These Northwestern Wildcats are certainly up to the challenge, but Trey Sermon's doing some preaching on Saturday, isn't he? Woo! Trey Sermon tearing up the Northwestern defense, especially here in the second half. He did so in the first half as well, but the Buckeyes could not capitalize in the red zone. Trey Sermon has scored again, and the Buckeyes now lead 22-10. It looks like they're going for two with just about 4 minutes left to play. And the Buckeyes, yes, with the passing game faltering, have gone to the run game in a huge way. And they are not able to complete the two-point play. So Northwestern still in the game with 4 minutes left. Buckeyes lead 22-10 at the Big Ten Championship game in Indianapolis. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking things down as we do every Saturday after the noon Eastern time window, analyzing that section of games, and then, of course, taking your calls. And we've got our eye on the Big 12 as well, of course. And at last check there, Oklahoma up 24-14. I'll have to get an update on that game, but the Sooners up on Iowa State in the fourth quarter as well. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Hunter from Alabama.
Hey, Hunter. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. What's up?
Yeah, this looks to be a better game with Ohio State Northwestern than I thought it was going to be.
I've got to say it's about the game that I anticipated. I thought it would be pretty close and that the Buckeyes would pull away late. So I typically don't have them all pegged, that's for sure. I get surprised myself, but not on this one.
Do you think that Ohio State is not as strong as they've been in previous years, especially when you look at the defensive side of the ball?
Well, I think their defense has played an exceptional game today. But, yeah, throughout the season, they've had their issues in coverage. They've had their issues in coverage, number one. They do not have a great linebacking core. It's a good, solid linebacking core. And they also do not have that special elite NFL top 10 type pass rusher, Chase Young, Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa type. They don't have that guy.
Yeah, you're right. And here they've had to replace some guys on that core. I just from a playoff standpoint, when you look at them, I just don't know how well they'll compete against an Alabama or even a Clemson within having that vulnerability. Down the stretch when you're going to get teams that can pass a lot better than these teams in the Big Ten.
I understand your concern, but I think you have to realize that the Big Ten's a better conference than the ACC. I think we get fooled by Northwestern. I think we get fooled by Northwestern, and it happens not every year, but a lot of years. Northwestern is better than we think they are.
Oh no, I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying when you're going against a guy like Trevor Lawrence, and I'm not speaking for the whole ACC conference as itself, but I'm just saying, just when you look at Trevor Lawrence, I'm concerned. I don't know. It's hard for me to. I've only seen them play a couple times this year, and they haven't had a full season, and that's not their fault entirely. They're playing a good game here today, and looks like they're going to pull away here. But it doesn't look like the Ohio State that we've seen the last couple of years. So that's my only concern with them. On another note, before I let you go, what do you think the outcome of this Alabama and Florida game is going to be?
Well, I like to save that for the folks on Patreon and honor their subscription there. So my predictions are over there. Any of the patrons on the line or in the live chat that want to divulge what I predicted there can certainly do so. But I like to honor their contribution there, and that's where I put my predictions.
Okay.
So I'll certainly tell you after the fact, but it's all there to see. So I'm not going to be dishonest with anyone. But after the game starts, certainly I'll throw the predictions out there. But they are there to be seen.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. I wasn't aware that was.
No, that's fine.
You had that.
Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Maybe we'll change things up next season. I don't know, but we included it there this season.
Well, I just think for somebody who's an Alabama fan,
yep.
I don't think Florida can hang with our offense. Their defense is not the best, and they're going to present some struggles on when for our defense. I think we're going to see a better offensive team than we've seen all year in terms of the pass game. So I think it'll be a good game, but I think Alabama pulls out in the second half for sure.
Yeah, Alabama's playing better than anyone in the country. I don't think there's any question about that. Now, whether that translates a couple weeks from now when elite teams are on the field against them, I don't know, but I certainly trust Nick Saban in his process. And again, I don't think there's a doubt that they're playing better than anyone.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Hunter. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're taking calls here on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, 860-325-3687, 860-325-3687. Of course, we'll take in the last 2 minutes of what may not necessarily have been anticipated as being a great finish. The Ohio State-Northwestern game much closer, and then the Buckeyes have made some space between them and Northwestern. Iowa State getting blown out early, 17-0, has closed it to 27-21, holding Oklahoma to a field goal with 2 minutes left to give themselves a chance. Brock Purdy just got sacked, but it appears as though there's some type of roughing the passer penalty here against Oklahoma, which will bail out Iowa State, we believe, at this point, but that was just a first down play. But it would have been 2nd and 16 or 17, something in that range. Love Championship Saturday. This is awesome. And, of course, we've got Clemson and we've got Notre Dame coming up. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line? Navy, what's going on?
I've got the wine of the day because Clemson and Notre Dame gets to play a second game to see who goes to the non-happening championship game.
Okay.
Now that Notre Dame's already beat them once this year, that should already be claimed that you've already been beat. But no, 1978, Nebraska had to play Oklahoma after beating Oklahoma once in 78 and then got beat in 78 or 79 early, something late then. It's just something that I checked it again today, so I'm watching you, and I just went, oh, my God. That's all I had to say, buddy.
Well, Navy Thomas, this actually happened 2 years ago in the Big 12 where Oklahoma lost to Texas in the regular season, got to play them in a rematch in the Big 12 championship game, and that's what allowed them to go to the playoff. They got a rematch and won.
I watched a little bit of that game, but it was just like worthless to watch for me. So,
what are you talking about? This Oklahoma? Are you talking about the game on today, right now, Oklahoma and Iowa State?
Yeah.
Well, Iowa State's got a chance to win here. They're driving down the field. They're only down 6. There's 90 seconds left in the game. And since I picked Iowa State to win, I'm hoping that they do it.
But either way, Oklahoma's already been beat once this year.
Twice.
And Iowa State, I don't think they've ever been beaten until today, but Okay, if they want to make that the championship game, okay, I'll let that go.
Iowa State and Oklahoma both have 2 losses, and they're playing in the Big 12 championship right now, and Iowa State has a chance to win the game here. All right, Tom. Appreciate the call. I'm going to take these other calls, okay?
All right, man. Catch you later.
Press 1 to start the call, or 2. The call will start at the beep.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's George.
Hey, George. What's up?
Man, it's hard following all these games and the point spreads and trying to keep track of it. If you're counting the point spreads, you know, everything's.
I've got that covered for you, George. You just look at my list on Patreon, and I'll set you up right.
Hey, I haven't bet on a game in 2 years. I didn't bet. My one brother took $250, and my other brother took $250. And my brother's at the casino. He has no idea what to do. He went there to take Florida in the 17.5, but it's down to 14.5 now.
Wow, is it?
I know.
Huh?
That's in somewhere in Mississippi. But do you have any feelings about a safe pick or any? What's your best play of the week?
My best play of the week, George. You're with us on Patreon, right? You've got a Patreon account, right?
I want to share it with the general voting public.
Well, you can certainly do that. And I let the previous caller know before Navy Thomas. The previous caller, Hunter, asked for my SEC championship game prediction, but I'm trying to honor those people that are contributing to me on Patreon because the predictions are there, exclusively there.
All right. I didn't have enough money on my card to re-up this month, so I'm not on there.
Oh,
but that's okay. I think
I just want to honor the people that are. I want to honor the people that are supporting me there because I publicize that my predictions are there. Okay. Yeah, I'm not necessarily that confident on my SEC championship game prediction, regardless. But I'm off to a great start this weekend. I'll tell you that. I took Northwestern in the 20 points.
Oh, that was God, that was free money, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know about that. It's turned out to work, but Ohio State could certainly beat Northwestern in any given day by 3 or 4 touchdowns. I wouldn't call it free money. Now that it's worked out, it seems like it was free money.
Right. Well, they only won by 12, so it was free money.
Yeah, after the fact. Same thing with Texas A&M. I took Texas A&M to cover the 13, and they just won by 21. So there's another win.
Right.
And now I need Iowa State to pull this game out.
To win?
Yeah, I picked them to win the game.
To cover the 4.5?
Is that what the spread was? I don't remember what the spread was. They were getting 4.5?
Yeah, I got 4.5.
Okay.
I got 4.5, but I don't know what the score is right now.
They're losing 27-21, and they're driving.
Who's driving?
Iowa State. But the 4.5 doesn't matter now. The 4.5 is out the door because they've got to score a touchdown to win. So they're not going to kick a field goal.
I love Iowa State. Go Iowa State. I love it when the little guy wins, and they're not really. They're always so tenacious year after year after year. It's amazing.
They have been since Matt Campbell showed up.
Yeah. I told my brother just take all the money, go to the roulette wheel, put it on red, win or lose, just leave.
Gonna take this other call, George. You can share the gambling stories tonight.
All right, talk to you later.
Thanks, George. We're going to keep this moving along. It looks like Oklahoma has just intercepted Brock Purdy. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Unbelievable ending to the Big 12 there, Mark Rogers.
Unfortunately for me, I was pulling for Iowa State to get it done here. But, yeah, exciting.
Matt Campbell's crew, proud of Mount Union.
Yes. That
Probably
was
going to get big time.
That was not a wise decision by Purdy. That was a stupid decision. Now that I see the play.
You're right. That was bad. That was bad. Hey, how much of the Ohio State game did you watch today?
I watched all of it.
Okay. I didn't know if you, because I know you watch multiple games, so I was just kind of curious to see if you know. Good.
Yeah, just the two to really keep track of here.
Mark, I just do not have a good feeling about this team right now. I really don't. I got to be perfectly honest with you. And maybe I got to give enough credit to Northwestern.
Yep.
And you know, and there's a line by a coach. He once said, "Sometimes we don't give our opponents enough credit," and oftentimes that's the case. And you know, maybe we should give them a lot of credit for keeping the game as close as they did today. But Justin Fields looked horrible today. And, you know, and maybe it's the new receivers and being without some of their receivers, but I just did not like the way he looked today at all. And, you know, sometimes these coaches kind of outsmart themselves by getting a little bit pass happy. Charlie Sermon had like 300 and some yards today. Mark, he probably could have had 400 yards today if they'd have given him a few more carries from like the second quarter on. Once they realized that the passing game wasn't clicking, I mean, that you could have drove a truck through some of those holes. I think Mark Rogers could have ran for close to 300 yards today.
Put me around 150. I think I could have made it through for about 150.
I hear you're elusive in the open field, Mark. So I don't know.
I was at one point.
I mean, but did you notice that as well, that they maybe should have gone to the run earlier?
Oh, absolutely.
Game, especially with Fields being off.
Absolutely. Most offensive coordinators by nature are pass happy because that's why they're offensive coordinators, because it's more difficult to scheme and it's more creative to scheme pass plays than run plays. And that's why they're so good at what they do, is they love to throw the ball.
Yeah.
I feel better about this team after watching this game. So I'm on the other side of all this. I feel so much better about this team after this performance because of two big reasons. They're smashing the ball down one of the best defenses in the country. They just pour holes through the front seven and ran the ball at will. They just didn't choose to until late in the game. And number two, the defense played an exceptional game for the most part.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I think there are elements of this defense I've liked the entire year. I like the front seven from the beginning. And maybe the secondary isn't as awful as I thought it was. Although, again, you don't know how good your secondary is until you face some top-flight receivers. And, you know, let's be honest, Northwestern doesn't have exactly the second coming of Randy Moss and Jerry Rice out there. So, you know, you really don't know. I was exaggerating there, obviously. But, you know what I mean? They don't have, let's say, top-flight guys.
Sure.
But, you're right. I feel a lot better about this defense. I do feel a lot better about the running game. But, and maybe Fields can play better than this. But when he faced a couple of decent defenses this year, he's not looked great. You know, he did not look great against Indiana, who plays pretty good defense. You know, had the 3 turnovers. He did not play great today. So that gives me a little bit of pause. Now, I hope that the Big Ten maybe revises this COVID situation and allows them all those starters back by the playoffs. That's going to be the thing to watch, I would think, correct?
Yeah, they were missing more players than Northwestern. Northwestern had the one big loss in the secondary with Craig Newsome not playing. He's an exceptional player, maybe the best cover corner in the Big Ten. But besides that, Ohio State had the volumes of players missing from this game. I was happy that the offensive line was intact because I thought that would be key. I did not think, for as great a player as Chris Olave is, I did not think that they would miss him as much as they did. I had a friend text me that Olave's out, and I said, that is the unit on the field where they can suffer the most loss. It's not a big deal. He's a great player. Yes, he's going to make some plays other guys won't, but that I much rather have the offensive lineman back and have him gone. But I did, after watching Fields struggle and hold the ball, think he's got a chemistry with Olave that he doesn't have with any of those
true.
other receivers. And I just think that they've got something going. And we didn't necessarily see it today. I feel good about this team.
I would feel optimistic. It depends on what the Big Ten does with that COVID rule. If they can get those players back, most importantly Olave, back for the playoff, which I think they're going to be a playoff team. I mean, even though today's outing wasn't top notch in destruction, I still think that they will be a playoff team. So I think they need to get those guys back. I wonder if the Big Ten does that with the rule. I hope so, but we'll see. How you like Clemson in this second game? Did you pick them?
As I've stated to my last three callers, I try not to divulge those predictions because those are for you and those other patrons that contribute over there.
I got it.
So it's right there for everyone to see.
Let's hope for a good game, and I'll hit you back later. Hopefully your picks go good. Live stream later tonight, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
Thanks,
Take
Dave.
care.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Oklahoma dominance to start. They hold on to win the game and hold off Brock Purdy and company 27-21 and win another Big 12 championship. That would be a college football record for conference championships with now 50. Got Jason Ray on the line for Last Word on College Football to help us break it down. Jason, how you doing this afternoon?
Good, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Wow, what a game. What a game. And it didn't necessarily appear as though it was going to come down to a flurry of a finish like it did. So let's start with what is the most recent and the most meaningful in terms of making this a great finish. How do you think Iowa State got back in the ball game?
Yeah, Mark. I think it's interesting. The one thing that Lincoln Riley's got a little bit of criticism this year on is just from a play calling perspective, not necessarily from a play calling exactly time, score, and situation, but he's had a tendency of taking his foot off the gas just a little bit, and you can see he certainly did that. They got out of rhythm big time in the second half. There was a key third down play, 3rd and 1, where even on the broadcast you saw that you have a big 240, 250-pound back, give it to him, give him a yard. They dropped Rattler back to pass, ended up being incomplete. And then, kind of a similar situation a couple of drives later, 3rd and 7, and he runs the ball with Ramondre Stevenson and only got a couple of yards. So, again, we've talked about this so much. It was the defense. The defense certainly won this game for Oklahoma. Came out, to your point, Mark, played well. Offensively played well in the first half. Got off to that 17-point lead. I think it was 17-0 at one point. Then they, whatever it is, maybe it's just the strange season, or maybe not as much trust on the offensive line. From a run blocking perspective, but Riley kept the foot off the gas a little bit. But the thing that Grinch for 3 years for Oklahoma 2 years has been preaching is turnovers, and they've struggled with it, being able to force turnovers for really a season and a half. And then the second part of this season, the turnovers started to come, and then certainly you saw that today.
I don't know if people are really appreciating what's going on here with the Oklahoma defense. We've certainly talked about it week in, week out as the season has progressed. If you look around college football, we know what the Big 12 reputation is for scoring points. We know what it's been beyond the perception, the actuality on the field. And that's not necessarily, it's basically the rest of college football has caught up with the Big 12, if you want to put it that way, in regards to scoring. There's no differences in scoring and the points per game put up by teams across the nation. So it is difficult to stop offenses in this day and age. Even very talented NFL-laden defenses are giving up 25, 30, 35 points per game. There are some exceptions. Ohio State most of the time can hold down teams. Georgia, Alabama's got an excellent defense, but there's not many out there that are holding teams down. Notre Dame has had a great defensive effort for the most part this season. Oklahoma's in that category in regards to the yards and the points that they're giving up. And then just to see them play beyond the metrics, to see them play, to see their defensive line play, and to see them tackle in the open field and gang tackle, not blow coverages. They're playing tremendous defense.
Yeah, it's really incredible. I think this, maybe not necessarily the first time, but I think, being on this stage, I think this is one of the first times the entire country, obviously it was kind of probably a split TV with the Big Ten championship as well, but a lot of people around the country got to see exactly what you have talked about, and me and you have talked about, all season. I think one of the things that was, you saw watching the game, the defensive line, it really just pops off the tape every single game. They're able to get pressure. They're able to get pressure with just 3 and 4. I think one of the big a guy who's played really well this season, but he played exceptionally well today, was defensive tackle Perrion Winfrey. He was double teamed, a lot during this game, and it didn't matter. He was getting pressure on the quarterback, on Purdy nonstop. Purdy he's a good quarterback just in terms of his elusiveness and being able to get out of the pocket. Oklahoma probably could have had 6-7 sacks in this game, but his ability to break out of that. And so I think as you look at Oklahoma going forward, certainly next season, the defensive line is championship worthy. I mean, I think they can play with the Ohio States, they can play with the Clemsons, they can play with the Alabamas. And I think you saw also today the secondary has just gotten better each and every game, and certainly the secondary benefits from that defensive line getting pressure on the quarterback. But I think that conversation has changed. Just in terms of Oklahoma, it's more can the offense score? Can the offense score enough points to win the game? Now you're seeing it even in Lincoln Riley's play calling. You're seeing it a little bit. He's playing more field position game. He's playing more. He's catering maybe a little bit more to the defense, saying we don't have to score 40, 50 points a game to win, even in a championship game. And I think the one thing that was alluded to on the broadcast, which was interesting. Last year, Oklahoma was much better defensively. They were in the top, 30, 40 overall in team defense. But, maybe it was a little bit of smoke and mirrors. The Big 12 offenses probably weren't quite as good last year that they were this year. And certainly you saw that happen in the college football playoff. Certainly Oklahoma's not going to make the playoff now, barring anything crazy happening. But what it does is it sets them up certainly for next year. A lot of those younger kids will be a little bit older. So I think it sets Oklahoma up to be in more of a position to really challenge for a national championship next year.
You alluded, Jason, to the game broadcast. I will just say as a side note, this being my own opinion, that it may have been the best and certainly an underrated broadcast team. I think Sean McDonough, Todd Blackledge, and Todd McShay on the field with his analysis from a draft perspective and from a football perspective as well is exceptional. And those guys aren't at the top of most people's minds when it comes to great play-by-play teams. So I'm going to run down my list of just what else stood out to me as I took notes during the game. Of course, right out of the gate, 30 seconds into the contest, unfortunately, we had a targeting call against Hasheem Young. He's one of the better young players in the Big 12, defensive freshman of the year for Iowa State, on a targeting call that I thought he did everything he possibly could to get his head and helmet out of the way and lead with the shoulder, and he was still, after the review, it was actually confirmed as a targeting. I thought that was unfortunate.
Yeah, no, it really was, and I think it probably changed at least the scope of the game early. Iowa State certainly recovered and played a little bit better in the back half of the secondary, but it took a little bit for them to kind of solidify themselves, early on. And yeah, that was certainly a big play, for momentum early in the game. That I think Oklahoma got off to that big lead, very similar to the way they played against Oklahoma State, got off to that 21-point lead. And then, even somewhat similar to the game in Ames, they were up 17-6, certainly couldn't hold on in that game, obviously. And then we know really what the difference is. And I think, as you look at, looking at Rattler stats, 22 out of 34, 272 yards, the 1 touchdown. I think the one thing that you take away from him, and I think when we previewed this game, we talked a little bit about this, how he went back a little bit to some of his old form against Baylor, fitting the ball in to spots, not the best decision making that you could have seen. And I think you saw the good Rattler in this game. He had one play, I think it was the end of the first quarter, where he tried to fit a ball in and could have been intercepted, ended up getting caught by Marvin Mims. But yeah, I think he was the big difference. Certainly Ramondre Stevenson, almost 100 yards, I think 18 carries, 97 yards. I think they probably could have fed him a little bit more. But yeah, I think like early in the game, that play was really big for Iowa State. And, it's kind of one of the things that I wrote about in this preview was you have two of the most energetic coaches in the country. And, it's just funny to see on two separate occasions, Matt Campbell just absolutely lost his mind on the sidelines. That was one play. And there was another play. I'm trying to remember the exact situation. I think, it was where they were looking to try to go for it on the 4th and 1 or 4th and short. Oklahoma player jumped off, didn't make contact. And then, Iowa State ended up going for it and not converting after that. But, I think, we talked just a little bit about the coverage, and it's kind of hard to believe Oklahoma's won so many championships, 6 in a row now, but Matt Campbell's won the Big 12 Coach of the Year 3 out of 4 years. So, as much as Iowa State loves him, it's, as well as he's done in Ames, it's hard to imagine he's going to be there long term. But you look at both of these teams, Mark, and I think these are two teams that at least next year you could see, them being back in this situation. Oklahoma's extremely young, at all areas of offense and defensive side of the ball. They don't really lose much on both sides. And then you got Iowa State. Brock Purdy's, I would assume that he's probably coming back. I believe Breece Hall is a true sophomore this year. I think, is that right? I think so. So yeah, you have him back. Texas, that's a little bit shaky right now. You have Oklahoma State, that's certainly a little bit shaky as well. So, conceivably you could see these two teams, locking up again in next year.
The winner most likely not to the Big 12 championship, and of course that were to the college football playoff, that being Oklahoma. They hold off Iowa State in what turned out to be a barn burner after it looked like it might be a rout. Oklahoma wins a 50th conference championship. That's a staggering number, the number one number on that list of conference championships in college football history, 50. And again, 0 for Iowa State, going back to, of course, that 2-0 Missouri Valley Conference team back in 1912. But what a job Matt Campbell's done, and it was a great football game. Brock Purdy, unfortunately, I understand the situation. There was a bit of desperation, but there was still more than a minute left on the clock. That final throw he made was very questionable, just really chucked it up.
Yeah, it was kind of strange. I think, to your point, Mark, I think he panicked a little bit. There was some substitution chaos towards the end of that play. Worst case scenario, you take a timeout there, maybe even, another situation. Obviously he could have thrown it away. I think there was a little bit over a minute left, still had the one timeout. I think it was more of a desperation thing right there. And, Trey Brown I don't know that they've announced who the MVP or anything like that, but he might be the guy. Got that interception late, had 2 really big kickoff returns that really in the second and into the first half, got Oklahoma back to that 17-point lead after Iowa State had cut it to 10. And then certainly Oklahoma had done absolutely nothing in the second half. I believe 5 possessions, 5 punts. And then they got that kickoff return, got him, in field goal, Oklahoma in field goal range, so Burkett could make that a 6-point game, make it a little bit of a different look for Iowa State, needing a 6 as opposed to getting a 3 just to send it into overtime. But 6 in this day and age, 6 in a row is incredible. I think Clemson's going to be going. If I'm correct, Clemson's going for the the same 6 in a row to that, in just a few minutes here against Notre Dame. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that we talked about, if Oklahoma was going to get beat, going to get knocked off their throne, so to speak, from a Big 12 championship perspective, it would be this year. And it just certainly wasn't to be for Iowa State. The 3 turnovers, clearly the difference in the game. I would say it. Looking back at it, Oklahoma left a lot on the table, in the second half. But hey, it's going to be interesting to see, what happens from this. I think you probably see Oklahoma either in the Cotton Bowl, I would assume, against A&M at this point. I mean, I know that probably could be, you could probably look at Florida possibly getting into that Cotton Bowl, but probably A&M. And Iowa State, it'll be interesting. I would probably think they go to the Fiesta. I think they still. I mean, you gotta think they won't drop very far. Maybe a Fiesta matchup against Oregon in that bowl game, depending on what happens. Certainly the rest of the way this afternoon and this evening.
So we've got the top 25 rankings coming out at noon Eastern time tomorrow, and then the bowl invitations, as Jason outlined, to follow, and those are certainly some viable options for both Oklahoma and Iowa State. Sooners win 27-21. Catch Jason Ray's work at Last Word on College Football. Also, if you want a complete rundown of Oklahoma's signing day, join the video that Jason and I posted here, but also the complete article that you can find on Last Word on College Football to accompany that. So go to Last Word on College Football and find Jason's work right there. All right, Jason, appreciate you stopping by, breaking down the Big 12 championship.
All right, great, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
So to clarify a side note that a lot of people are alluding to in the chat, Trey Sermon, consider he only carried the ball, I think, about 10 times in the first half. I posted a tweet that said he had 10 for 150 in the first half. Master Teague at that point had 2 carries for 23 yards. So Ohio State had 6 points on the board, no touchdowns, and had 2 running backs averaging 14 yards per carry. That's what was wrong with the Ohio State offense at one point. Too much passing. No Chris Olave. Justin Fields obviously struggling to a certain extent, and much of those struggles had to do with the offensive line being ambushed by exotic blitzes and tremendous play by Northwestern. And of course, you got that KG veteran, Mike Hankwitz, 51 years in coaching up the Northwestern defense as defensive coordinator for his last go-around this year, and what a career he's had. But the point I was getting at, as being mentioned in the chat, I'm almost certain, I don't know that it was mentioned during the game because we were getting set up here during the final 5 minutes of the game, but Eddie George ran for 314 yards against Illinois, a game I remember well. I believe the Buckeyes won 41-3 in 1995. That has been the Ohio State rushing record for the last 25 years. Eddie George, 314. Before that, it was Keith Byers with 274 against Illinois in 1984 when he lost his shoe on a very famous touchdown run against the Illini in a Buckeye comeback 45-38. And then if you take it before that, Archie Griffin, I believe against North Carolina. I'm not positive on the opponent. Archie Griffin had the rushing record prior to Byers with 250 yards in 1972 or 73. So it was Griffin, eclipsed by Byers, eclipsed by George in 1995 against Illinois with 314. I have checked the box score, 331 by Trey Sermon. Goodness gracious, on 29 carries. 29 carries is a workload, but they didn't give him the work when they should have, but they finally got it around and realized, hey, this is working, and until it gets stopped, it's working. Stay with it. I am encouraged. I believe Ohio State fans should be encouraged by this effort. Yes, there's an issue in the passing game. The passing game has not been as sharp, not in particular in this game. Northwestern's got a tremendous defense, tremendous top 10 defense, if you put it all together. And the Ohio State defense, for the most part, shut down the Northwestern offense. Yes, they gained some yardage, but the Ohio State offense put their defense in horrible field situations throughout much of the game. Peyton Ramsey went 24 for 37 for 224 and 2 interceptions. Cam Porter, 16 carries for 61 yards. Really, the Northwestern rushing game, Ramsey had a 34-yarder. Didn't do a heck of a whole lot for the most part. We're going to take everybody up to the kickoff of the ACC championship game in just about 10 minutes. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Michael Hoke. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Michael. I'm doing well. What's going on?
Yeah, but congratulations to Ohio State and stuff like that on the game and stuff like that. I can't tell it, but anyway, my main thing is that when they had the Northwestern in the second half, do you think they should have kept going with the run with the Wildcat, or do you think that would have worked in your honest opinion?
Oh, wait.
Even though they couldn't score within the first half, because they was moving the ball and stuff.
Well, I don't think that any offense is going to be able to live on the Wildcat, because there's an obvious advantage to the Wildcat is that you have an extra blocker. The obvious disadvantage to the Wildcat is that it's an obvious run and not a pass, depending on who you have taking the Wildcat snaps. And for Northwestern, it's an obvious running situation. They're not going to throw it. But they were moving the ball. They were confusing the Ohio State defense. They were shifting. They were running different pulls from their guards out of the Wildcat. And so it wasn't just a straight Wildcat formation, which is typically snap the ball, the running back / quarterback gets the ball, just looks for a gap and goes. They were running exotic blocking schemes in front of it, which were working. So you can't rely your complete offense on that. But, yeah, it probably could have been utilized more, just like Ohio State should have run the ball more because it was working. You know, Ohio State had a drive in particular where they ran twice for 25 yards, and then on the third play, they threw a pass and it got picked off.
Go ahead.
So there you go.
Yeah, one thing I'm just trying to figure out too is what was it Sermon wasn't getting the ball more often, and why was they focusing on Teague as the primary back this year?
Well,
or was it Sermon was getting it more than Teague was? I don't know.
No, Master Teague's been the primary running back. He's had, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would guess that he's carried it 60 to 65% of the time up until the last couple games.
Just wondering. So, if you're Pat Fitzgerald, where do you go from here and stuff like that? And how can they go about getting to where they can keep the defense but get their offense showing up next year?
Well,
more better.
I find it difficult to find too many flaws in Northwestern's process. I don't know that they can. I think they're operating it at a high capacity right now. I just don't know the way that they're built from an institutional and academic standpoint, especially in that part of the country, that they're going to be able to bring in much better talent. And they're building it into, I consider Wisconsin to be the standard in that division, but Northwestern's won the division 2 of the last 3 years. So they just played one of the best teams in the country to a one-score game with 4 minutes left in the Big Ten championship game. I don't want to say they should settle for that, but I don't know what else they can really squeeze out of that program and the resources they have.
Do you still see them maybe getting the Year 6 Bowl, or will it be IU now?
I would think that it would be Indiana with a better record and a higher ranking going into this game.
Just wondering. All right, sir. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Press 1 to start the call or
All right, we are taking everyone up to the kickoff of the ACC championship game here on ABC. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's NT again, buddy. I forgot to bring up the subject I sent to you this morning.
About Brett Bielema.
With Breitbart. He left Wisconsin, went to Arkansas, and now he's going to Illinois because they fired Lovie Smith. And I wanted you to go with that because I know you've got it on the title of this, but nobody brought it up. So I wanted to bring it back up and go with it. But main thing, I wanted to eliminate all the garbage that was coming off the last talk. So, all right, man, back at you.
I appreciate it, Tom. And we will certainly get to the Brett Bielema conversation here. Maybe I'll post a video on that because I think that's a good hire for Illinois. But nobody's too concerned, I don't think, about Brett Bielema right now with the playoff spots on the line. But maybe we'll get a chance to break that down sometime tomorrow.
No Wisconsin, now Illinois. Oh, my God. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. Tom makes sure I'm updated on everything across the board. So minutes before I would have seen that Brett Bielema was picked up by Illinois, I saw the tweet come out from Tom and had a couple other people contact me to let me know Brett Bielema to Illinois, which I think I was only asked once about the Illinois job. I was asked dozens of times about the South Carolina job, about the Vanderbilt job even, and then certainly now about the Auburn job, but not a whole lot of interest at this point about the Illinois job. But I also received some information, was not aware that they had built just recently in the last year or so some tremendous football-only facilities there at Illinois, trying to keep up with the likes of Minnesota and Northwestern, who have built big-time facilities just in the last few years. So the Big Ten Western Division may be closing the gap. I don't necessarily know that they're closing the gap on Ohio State. They're not from a talent standpoint, but the division's probably better right now, 1 through 7, than the Big Ten Eastern Division. All right, so we've got 2 conference champions in the books from the Power 5 with actually 3, I should say, with Oregon, Oklahoma, and Ohio State. Notre Dame, Clemson coming up, Alabama, and Florida tonight. Dependent Fanatic, congrats, Buckeye fans. Way to take advantage of Indiana and make it worth it. So unfortunately for Texas A&M, I'm sure that they walked off the field after beating Tennessee by 3 touchdowns and started to get the score updates from the Big Ten championship game because that's the one that they needed. They needed that one. Now we have a situation where if Alabama wins tonight, Notre Dame sweeps Clemson, Ohio State's in. That's 3 spots. Maybe A&M makes that 5th spot or that 4th spot as the number 5 team currently. So Texas A&M definitely rooting for Notre Dame right now to complete the sweep, knock Clemson out, and create a debate between Oklahoma and Texas A&M for the 4th position. So on one hand, you would have Texas A&M 8-1, number 5 team in the country, just beat Tennessee, a bad team, 3-7 by 21 points, versus an Oklahoma team that was 5 spots lower in the rankings, but has now completed an 8-2 season, but is a conference champion, defeating the number 6 team in the country to finish their season. You talk about trying to weigh that out. 8-1, 8-2. No conference championship, conference championship. Just beat a bad football team by 21 points. Just beat a really good number 6 team, 27-21. Who goes to the playoffs? In my mind, that should be Oklahoma. So I'm not evaluating who's the better team, but who is the better qualifications for me. If Notre Dame wins this game and knocks out Clemson, then for me, it should be Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. Husker Tim, Marcus Wright, Ohio State fans crying that they didn't win by 50. Ridiculous. You just won the Big Ten championship. Yes, you won a conference championship. That's an accomplishment. Are there some concerns? And I thought Dave brought them up, and I think they're legit. I discounted them. I hope it didn't sound like I discounted concerns about Ohio State's passing game and Justin Fields in particular, but it's one game. Their passing game has been lights out otherwise. Even against Indiana, they made mistakes, but they made huge plays in the passing game and scored 42 points. And look at this running game. The rushing game was the concern for Ohio State and Buckeye fans through most of this season. It was the running game, and it was the defense. All right, Clemson's kicked off. Notre Dame will have the ball. It appears at, no, not the 25. They're going to bring it out, and they should have kept it in the end zone. So Notre Dame sets up shop with Ian Book at quarterback at the 21-yard line. We will catch everyone tonight after the SEC championship game. See you then, right here. And I got to catch this super chat. I appreciate it coming in from Bama to the Bone. Bama to the Bone, thank you so much for the super sticker right there. Appreciate your contribution. And there might have been one more. I hope I didn't miss it. The Block O. Thank you so much, the Block O, for your contribution as well. Hashtag we want Bama and hopefully Texas A&M so we can wipe out SECPN. So Block O and Bama to the Bone. Thank you for the contribution. We need these to thrive and to stay alive. And we will see you tonight after the SEC championship game.